everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Eric.
And today Eric and I are going to start a brand new series.
I'm registered Eric. That's I should probably bring in rank in this, right?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, that makes perfect sense for this show. At least for the Star Trek side of it. Does Babylon 5 have any equivalent to red shirts?
No. They just have Garibaldi's security force that will die.
I mean, by the point where we are in Star Trek with Deep Space Nine, the red shirt thing isn't a thing anymore either. Otherwise, you'd lose Cisco in the pilot. Today, Eric and I are going to start a brand new series called Deep Space Babylon 59. I'm very proud of that title. And this is an idea that we came up with a few months ago, and we're finally getting around to it. We're going to do our level best to put this out as often as humanly possible.
It is the worst idea.
Oh, yeah. We are shooting for weekly. We all know here at Geekvolution how well that often turns out. So we're going to do our level best to put this out.
I thought we were going to shoot for bi-weekly.
We're
going to try and record weekly, but shoot for bi-weekly in case. So, like, if we had a miss.
That might be smart, but I mean, like, we're gonna so many episodes. Like, how many years are we gonna be doing this?
Yeah. I mean, it makes that later stuff easier that we don't have to deal with that for a couple.
That's true.
Years.
Yeah. Eric's talking about the fact that Deep Space Nine goes on longer than Bab 5. So once we get to season 6, we'll just be talking about Deep Space Nine at least.
Oh, we can do the
movies.
We can do Crusade. That's 9 episodes.
Oh, okay. But anyway, so we're doing a bit of a fun experiment here. This is a kind of thing we've never done before. We're going to be talking about 2 different shows simultaneously. And the reason we decided to do
literally.
Right. We're going to talk about one and then the other, but each episode of the show is going to be focused on Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5. And we decided to do this because Eric has been trying to get me to watch Babylon 5 since I met him. And I've been telling him that Deep Space Nine is probably the one Star Trek show he would really, really enjoy. And they obviously have a whole lot of stuff in common. They're both shows set on...
There's a historical connection, which we'll talk about at some point.
We'll talk about that. They're both set on space stations. They both started in 1993. And there were a lot of unlikely coincidences and parallels, thematic and character-wise and otherwise, that I noticed watching the 2 pilots, and was not expecting as much of that as I found. So that's going to all be really interesting to talk about. But lots of reasons to talk about these shows together. It's going to be a lot of fun because it's basically me introducing Eric to one of my favorite things and Eric introducing me to one of his favorite things and watching them all the way through. And so we're going to start with, I don't know which one we'll start with. Do you
want to talk about kind of the background connection, conspiracy stuff?
Absolutely.
So that's out there?
Yeah, let's start there. But what I was going to say is, whichever one of us starts, I'm going to talk about the Babylon 5 episode and my experience with it, because I have never seen the show before, and Eric is the quote-unquote expert for this. And then...
I'm not as much an expert of that as you are with Trek.
Yeah, and I don't want to
It's my favorite show. I've seen it twice through. But, like you said, you've seen this episode 6 times.
And there are certainly lots of people that know Deep Space Nine better than I do, and this is not my strong suit in Star Trek. I've watched it all the way through probably 3 times.
I love that idea that Trek is like math, and you're like, well, statistics isn't my strong suit.
Well, there's so much of it. There's so much of it. Yeah, I mean, TNG, I'm a great deal more confident in. There's a trivia game that my wife and I used to play all the time, and we would both kind of groan when DS9 questions came up, especially because there are episodes of that show when we were doing that she had never seen. But anyway, I digress. So why don't you get us started on some background?
Okay, so JMS, who at this point is known as mostly a comic book writer, I think. At this point in the current year of 2016, not at this point in his career. At this point in his career, when the show came out, he was known for cartoons. He did
Ghostbusters.
He did Ghostbusters. He worked on He-Man. And he'd also written on Murder, She Wrote.
And for anyone not familiar, that's J. Michael Straczynski is who we're talking about.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes, J. Michael Straczynski, or Joseph Michael Straczynski.
But let's try to make the assumption that there will be people who will listen to the show that know one but not the other.
Yeah, well, Yeah, I guess I was kind of thinking like, well, everybody knows JMS. He wrote Superman Earth 1. I guess is probably the most recent popular thing that he would be known for. Um, I generally refer to him as
I just don't want to
JMS.
exclude anybody,
No,
especially
no,
on
you're
this
absolutely
show.
right. So J. Michael Straczynski, or JMS, if I ever say JMS, that's who I'm talking about. He comes up with a series Bible and pitch for this series called Babylon 5, which is a something that's never really been done before in television. It's a 5-year ongoing story. So it'll be 5 seasons, and he's got the broad strokes. He doesn't have the nitty gritty details, but he has kind of the broad strokes of what the story is, what the universe is. And as the legend tells it, and as JMS tells it, this is the thing: is Deep Space. I went and looked. Deep Space Nine is mentioned on the Babylon 5 wiki. Babylon 5 is not mentioned on the Deep Space Nine wiki. So maybe this is a Babylon 5 fan thing and not a Deep Space or a Star Trek fan thing.
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody involved with Deep Space Nine ever bring up Bab 5. That doesn't mean they haven't, but just in like behind the scenes things and interviews and stuff I've read, I don't remember ever hearing Ira Stephen Bear or Michael
I feel like it would be
Piller
more
or any of
likely
those
that they
guys.
wouldn't, though, right? If you were the one who's being accused of ripping off, like, you wouldn't mention it.
Some of those guys are pretty candid though. Like if they were being accused of that, like I could kind of see.
Well, and JMS has never been
I mean,
accusatory, and
Rick
he
Berman
doesn't.
maybe would never bring it up, but somebody like Bear, like I could see him totally being like, yeah, we didn't. Everybody's accusing of us of that, but we didn't do it. Now if they actually did, but then he also came in later, I think. So
Well, and I looked at the wiki a little bit, and I'll bring that up in a second.
Sure.
So, um, so JMS goes to Paramount. Paramount is the channel, or is the company that's doing Next Generation. And if you're going to try and sell a science fiction TV show, I guess it makes sense to go to the people that are making the big science fiction TV show on TV.
yeah,
Oh, and he'd written Twilight Zone too. He'd written the remake Twilight Zone series.
and remember that TNG is like the #1 show in America right now.
Yeah. So he goes and he presents Babylon 5. And they get back to him and they're like, no, sorry, we're not really interested. So he goes, finds somebody else to produce Babylon
And
5.
having watched this, that's totally fair because it is too close to Star Trek to be put on, to be made by the same people making Star Trek.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Like most certainly, and I don't know where they would have put it.
so JMS goes and he sells it to somebody else and he starts making the show. And then they start making this Star Trek show that's set on a space station
Yeah.
that has like a casino and bar in it. And there's more moral ambiguity than there's ever been in Star Trek and a lot of these things. And according to JMS, this isn't even like hearsay, like I've heard the man say this. He could be making it up, I don't know. He said that he went to an industry party before both shows launched. And some of the head writers for Deep Space Nine were there and said to him, we know our show came from your show and we just want to wish you the best of luck. Which
Wow.
makes it sound like if it's true, I don't think on a writer's level, I don't think any of those people probably saw anything Babylon 5. I think like the way that's phrased makes it sound like someone higher up said this is a good idea for a show. Go do this show.
Yeah, so it wasn't their fault. They were asked to do a job.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll talk about similarities and
Wow.
stuff. And there are things that happen over the course of Babylon 5 that are changes to because actors come and go, and so clearly sometimes there are things where like this was probably one character, but because the actor left, this part of that character became this character and stuff like that. There's a character that comes in season 2 that has a very similar backstory to Sisko. And I don't know if that was something that would have been in that original pitch or if that is a coincidence. But we'll talk about stuff,
Well,
and we'll
and at
certainly
that
talk
point,
about.
it's possible that that
He was
the two
influenced
shows
by Deep.
would get ideas from each other.
Yeah,
And they're not necessarily ripping each other off, just like maybe it's even subconscious, some of it. But yeah, that's all certainly entirely possible, and maybe even likely, given that. And I had heard some of that, but I didn't know. But I'd love to know who exactly walked up to JMS and said that.
He never said, and I assume if it's true, he would never name names.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so and again, everything I've heard about this comes from fan speculation and a little bit from JMS, but it doesn't seem like there's any talk of this on the Trek side.
Yeah. And of course, I just wouldn't have thought to go look in that deep to the Babylon 5 side since I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to get spoiled on a lot of stuff, but yeah, it's the thing that's really suspicious is that they both start at the same time.
Yes. And there's
that's pretty suspicious. What I want to know, and I'd have to go back and look because I'm a little fuzzy on this. What I want to know is if the idea to go ahead and do a spin-off came from that idea in the first place, or if it was we're looking, and I think it's probably the latter, we're looking for a premise, and JMS comes in and pitches that as some other show, and they go, we really needed something different. I guess.
Yeah, we couldn't have two spaceships wandering the galaxy.
Yeah, and that's what Berman and Piller always said. Was like we want a decisively different kind of show, and we've never gotten to live in one place for a long time with these characters to really like watch them grow and develop, and it not just be an engine to tell kind of different stories every week.
Right. Well, and that was always one of the big things you always said to me about the series is that it's an ongoing story, not
just episode to episode. Yeah. Of course, there are a lot of like it's, and I don't know how. I guess I'll find out as we go along. It's nothing like Battlestar Galactica where it all runs into each other.
Right.
And I don't know how much like that Bab 5 is. Like, does it have a lot of filler episodes, or is there like an overarching story, but each episode does stand alone as a story? Because that's mostly DS9, with the exception of a lot of like 3 to 5 parters later.
Okay, well, the way it basically breaks down is for the first season and a half, JMS has a writing team like any other show would, and that's very episodic. While there's one of the things I realized when I watched the second time is I don't think there's any skippable episode. Like, everything has something that foreshadows something or sets something up. Every episode is kind of important. And then...
Wow. Okay, because DS9's not like that at all.
And then
you're going to have a lot of skippable episodes.
And then starting in the second half of season 2, JMS becomes the only writer on the show.
Yeah,
and from that point on, there's, I think, an episode by Harlan Ellison, and there's an episode by Neil Gaiman.
Oh, cool.
And once that happens, it's very much just kind of each episode leads into the next, kind of like Battlestar Galactica.
Okay. Wow. That's going to be fun to see done that early.
Yeah, well, and as far as I can tell, it's the first show to really intentionally be made that way.
Yeah, because the thing about the premise of DS9 potentially being stolen from JMS's idea is that setting it on a space station and having it be a darker, grittier thing, and as you said, with some moral ambiguity, and showing that side of the galaxy in Star Trek, that all might come from that. But the more overarching storytelling, they're either doing it poorly, or it naturally evolves into that. Because first season DS9, you'll see is, I mean, there's more establishing things that continue to matter as it goes along and stuff, but like it feels kind of like TNG set on a space station with some kind of darker stories.
Interesting. That makes it seem more like they might have accidentally copied Babylon 5's format more as they went on, or like
exactly, yeah, or that it just made sense.
It just naturally.
Because I mean, as you saw with the pilot, like they're setting up mysteries and things, and especially with the wormhole and the religion of Bejor and all of that stuff. And so they're planning on doing something with that stuff later. But I know for sure that it's not like what you're describing with a lot of the way JMS is writing. There's a lot of things that are set up and they write themselves into corners and they'll figure it out later.
Well, and it's interesting because
they certainly don't know. I certainly don't think they know exactly what the prophets are at the beginning.
I don't know what the prophets are, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
When I rewatched the series, because I watched Babylon 5 twice. The second time I did not watch the pilot, which maybe we'll talk about when we get to the pilot. The pilot is not on the season DVD set. It is on the movie set.
Which is just preposterous. I mean, put it on the movie set if it was put out as a TV movie, but it needs to be on that first season.
And
so or at the very least, there needs to be something on that box that lets you know that. Because if I didn't know people that knew that show, I would have been completely lost.
Well, and so when I started... Well, and I was. JMS was a guy who wrote Spider-Man I liked. And I found out he did this science fiction show. So I picked it up. From the library, and I started with episode 1. And I thought episode 1 was really confusing and felt like I missed an episode.
Because you did.
And I did. But what's interesting is when I rewatched the show, I didn't watch the pilot again because I don't own the movie set. I just own the 5 seasons. Like I said, I was going through it, and I was like, wow, this is really tight. There's all of this stuff that sets up later stuff, and I can't really see a lot of things that I would say are like plot holes. Like in certain ways, characters are set up for things that they don't necessarily pay off on because of the actors leaving or things like that. But like not a lot of things I would consider plot holes. Babylon 5's pilot opens with a plot hole. Literally, the opening narration is inaccurate for the rest of the series.
Is it a plot hole, or is it just a thing that they had to retcon because they decided it didn't make sense? Or is it the same thing in
It's
your
a
mind?
retcon, because it's very clear.
Yeah.
The opening narration of the Babylon 5 pilot.
I guess that sort of thing becomes a plot hole when you put it all together, right?
The opening narration of the Babylon 5 pilot is clearly a character reflecting and telling a story.
Yeah.
And most of that dialogue will be reused in the opening credits, but voiced by a different person.
Oh, yeah, it just occurs to me. I don't even know what Bab 5's opening credits look like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So... he says something. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but there is something that is said in that's a very definitive statement that is wrong.
Why can't you tell me? Because I don't know that I'll remember that he said it. But you're saying that I'm going to hear it a bunch of times.
Well, no. It's not in the rest of the.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
I mean, do you want me to tell you? Because it's. I mean, I don't know.
Is it somehow a massive spoiler? I'm just saying, like, I won't even know it's a retcon if I don't remember he said it.
Okay, I'll tell you now, and maybe you won't even remember by the time we get there.
Yeah.
The commander leaves and is replaced in season 2 by a separate character.
I just noticed that looking at the character names on Wikipedia. I'm getting spoiled by looking up the character names.
Okay, so I
was really surprised by that. So our main. Like, is he like Star Trek, like commanders or I guess commander in the case of Cisco, but like sort of like Star Trek right now, but like Star Trek captains where like he's kind of definitively the main character of the show and then he gets replaced? Or
kind of.
Do we not really play
it's
it that
a
way?
little bit more of an ensemble, but he's kind of the main character and he kind of gets replaced, but he doesn't.
I mean, don't get me wrong, DS9 is also an ensemble, but I'm just saying,
doesn't.
Like, Cisco's our main character throughout the whole show.
He doesn't disappear. He comes back a couple of times. He's still important to the plot.
Okay.
But it definitely shifts to the new commander is kind of the main character. So, in the opening monologue, which is read by, I think it's Londo. It sounds like Londo. I assume it's Londo. Londo's the guy with the big hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
He says, it all starts with the last commander of the Babylon 5 station, and it shows a picture of the current commander, and it's wrong.
Oh.
Because he's not the last commander of Babylon 5.
And they just didn't know that yet. Did they think that the station would get blown up early in the run or something?
I mean, this is a spoiler too, but like 5 episodes in, someone has a vision of the station blowing up.
Oh, okay.
They
Well,
know
I mean,
from the beginning.
that's an impending worry, given that one of the first things we're told is that there were 4 before it. Obviously, I mean, like, not obviously if you don't know what the point of the numbers is, but it's like there were 4 others, and I mean, like, I love the mystery surrounding that, where you've got state, like, 3 of them were, I love it, 3 in a row were sabotaged. Like, by whom? The same person? Like, what happened? Like,
They tell
we
you.
didn't.
That's explained.
Is that
So I
explained
guess
later?
this is- Yeah,
We didn't
so I
build
guess
up.
This is the Babylon 5.
Let's go ahead and get into that. Yeah, so we didn't.
Yeah.
So, like, because that's at the beginning of the episode, and when I start talking about it, I'd like to just go through some chronological notes. I think that'll be my structure for talking about my side of this. Is I'll just kind of like I used to do a lot with Primetime Crisis. I'll just go through some linear notes, but and then the 4th one just disappeared. I'm like,
And
ooh.
that's a major. You'll see.
I'm sure.
And
sure.
I will tell you that 4th one.
He sets up fascinating mysteries. Like, that's the biggest compliment I can give that pilot, is that it's clunky, and we'll talk about it, but there are all kinds of things where I'm like, ooh, that's interesting, and that's interesting, and then the big thing is, and why didn't you lead with that? Like, I kept thinking that throughout that episode, where I was kind of bored the first half an hour, and then things start happening, and I'm like, why didn't you lead with that?
Well, and I'll tell you, Babylon 4 is dealt with in this season. Some of the stuff that they set up doesn't get dealt with for another season or 2. Babylon 4 is dealt with and explained kind of in this season. So that's going to be answered pretty quickly.
Cool. Well, and obviously, if Sinclair is our main commander for just that first season, surely all the stuff about his missing day and all that has to get solved in that first season.
Well, he doesn't go away completely. He does recur a little bit, and I mean, when we get
Do we still not know by the end of this season?
Well,
I guess I don't want to know.
Okay, yeah.
See, this is going to be the problem with the show, right?
I'll tell you how he comes back is linked to Babylon. Never mind. You know what? I'm not going to say anything.
This is gonna be fun. So we should say, obviously, we're just talking about these episodes, so spoilers for these episodes, but potential occasional accidental spoilers about the entire series of these shows.
Yeah.
There's maybe no way around it, but we're gonna do our best, because we're gonna try not to spoil things for each other as much as we can. Okay, so should I just do a quick overview thing of just what my experience was with this?
Yeah.
Maybe. So I never watched this show because I got my hands on a VHS tape of this very pilot. Not like it had multiple pilots, but of this as opposed to the official first episode of the season. That whole thing is so weird.
Which we should mention, as we go through season 1, the numbers will be slightly off because the pilot for Deep Space Nine is the first 2 episodes. Babylon 5's pilot is technically like an episode 0. So throughout the first season, the numbers won't match up exactly.
Yeah, so when we start next time, we're going to be at like...
we'll be at 3
1
and
and
1.
3. Yeah, exactly. So I watched like... I don't remember if I borrowed this from somebody or what, but I watched like 20 minutes of the pilot once, and I just couldn't get into it.
Okay, now I have a question. When did you get that VHS tape?
I couldn't tell you. It was like maybe right out of high school, so it would have been early 2000s.
Okay, so I learned this from SF Debris' review of this pilot.
Oh, I didn't know he ever talked about this show.
Oh yeah, he started doing it. I would recommend watching his review of the pilot.
Yeah.
He, according to him, this is all I know about.
And actually, I think he's done Emissary, so I would recommend to you.
I actually did. I actually
did you?
watched
Did
it.
you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I'm going to do that for any more episodes until after we've talked about them.
Yeah, because he'll spoil stuff for you.
Well, and he also maybe points out things I wouldn't have noticed. But anyways.
Well, why is that bad?
I don't know. It feels unoriginal.
See, that's always my problem. Where, like, especially with his reviews, because he's insightful and notices stuff that I don't notice. That then I'll want to bring that up, but then I'll be like, I have to quote him. I mean, I have to keep, giving him credit constantly. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Okay, so according to SF Debris, what we watch is not actually the pilot. I think Because he says there are two versions of this. There's the broadcast version, which is terrible and should never be watched, and then there is a version of it that JMS re-edited and aired when they moved from PTEN to TNT, and I believe that would be the version that's on the DVD.
It has to be. I mean, when you watched it, I don't know. I'm assuming we watched the same version of it. It has that TNT logo at the beginning of it and says special presentation for TNT.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right then. Yes. Okay. So there is another version of this pilot that apparently is much worse.
And maybe unwatchable. Wow.
Maybe that's what you had on VHS.
Maybe it was, but I have to say that the main thing that turned me off to it somehow or rather didn't bother me as much this time, and I think it was just because I was ready for it. That wouldn't have been really affected by editing, I don't think. And that was just production value. Like I couldn't deal with the reboot looking CGI.
Well, and what's funny is when I went back to the beginning of the show, I didn't watch this. And I remember watching the first episode and being like, oh, it looks so much worse than the later seasons. And then I watched this and I'm like, this looks so much worse than the first episode.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, no, there's gonna be a massive improvement in quality just from this to the first episode, and kind of like pretty standard with the pilot, there are certain aesthetic choices that get changed, like the masks they wear when they go into the alien environments. You'll never see those again. They have a different mask for the rest of the series.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, they don't have those Bane masks.
Well, and of course, you'll see some improvement from first season DS9 into the rest of it, obviously, in a lot of things, especially in like makeup and hair and stuff. Like Odo looks like he's about to fall apart compared to what he looks like later. His makeup job early on is hilarious comparatively. But anyway, so but I also remembered when I had seen a bit of this before, not even liking what it looked like on the station and the aesthetic of that, and I thought the production values looked like not great and kind of early Doctor Who, and I didn't have that this time. I thought it looked pretty comparable.
It's like I said, it's kind of funny because going back to it, I was like, oh, this looks really bad compared to even like the first episode.
Because I was pretty tolerant of it. I just couldn't believe that they would have the audacity to not in '93 to not use models and go with CG. I thought that was the strangest, most preposterous choice.
Well, to be fair, it was a cost-cutting measure.
Well, no, of course, and models are expensive.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Star Trek said they would never go to CGI.
Yeah, and it was sad when they finally did, because TNG and DS9 hold up really well, especially compared to this.
There's some CGI in the DS9 pilot that I did not expect because of knowing that statement.
Well, yeah, I mean, Star Trek never said they would never do CGI.
It's CGI ships, yeah.
They were all for models with ships. But yeah, it's sad because when you get to later Voyager and especially Enterprise, there's really bad dated CG all over the place and some really lazy CG even for the time. When it was on, there was some Enterprise where I was like, holy crap! First second season especially. Well, no, all the way through. There were episodes where I was like, I can't believe that Star Trek is letting that these guys are letting that pass.
Nothing anyone will ever say about Babylon 5 is that its CGI holds up. It may look good for the time, but it's not good.
But even this didn't integrate at all. Well, like even in '93, I think I would have looked at that and been like, yeah, we're not ready for that.
Yeah.
It's and I don't mean to dwell on this, but there's that moment where I can't remember. I watched this a couple days ago where like we're in a shuttle or something.
Yes, and we never do that again, as far as I remember.
We
only use CGI for spaceship battles.
Well, let me set this up for people that don't know what I'm talking about.
Sorry.
We're sitting in a shuttle, and behind the people that are talking, we see the station and some space stuff. Or no. We're like it's like I don't know. We're moving in like an elevator. I forget what it is.
It's one of those things that you use on when you go skiing. It's like a lift.
It's sort of like a lift. Yeah. And it's like outside of the station. And and we have two people talking in the foreground. I think it's Sinclair and somebody else. And then behind them, there are two of our other characters that are the entire time looking at whatever is supposed to be going on in the background. And they never move their heads. They're just always staring at the green screen behind them. And I looked at my wife and I was like, are they watching TV? Are they playing a CD-ROM game? Like they can't think they're actually looking at anything that's really happening right now. Eric, this was an odd experience for me because I expected this to be a slog and to not find very much to grab onto at all because I'd heard that it's not a good pilot and
it's better than I remember. I can tell you that.
I had heard that it kind of takes a while to really find its legs and that I might not appreciate stuff that I don't understand yet and I just didn't think that I would really find much of anything to grab onto. And by the end, the last 5 minutes of this are quite good. And I don't mean to say that the rest of it is bad. I mean, like, I immediately, when I finished it, went, okay, well, I see I saw JMS's writing finally at the end. Like it all of a sudden, the potential for personality and character, like, all came in off the page into that show when Sinclair has that wonderful bluff telling G'Kar that he's that he swallowed something, that he swallowed a tracker, and that they'll be able to follow him for 5 years. And I love that he said 5 years because I know that's how long the show goes. And I was like, oh, that's great. And then what made it even better and what made it like edgier, but in a good way, than even DS9 would be for a long time, and then Star Trek had ever been, and it's impossible not to compare them. There's that line from I forget who it is, the girl with the hair or whoever it is that he's talking to at the end, where
the one is the one with the bone thing.
Yeah, I forget. Somebody says, well, do you have any idea what his people are gonna do to him trying to find it?
Yeah.
And he says, and he's like, yeah, I know. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Oh no, I think he's talking to Garibaldi at that point.
I couldn't remember who
security chief.
Again, it's been a few days. I couldn't remember who he was talking to. But yeah, you're right. It was Garibaldi. That's right. But anyway, so I don't know. That was super cool. So I'm gonna go through some notes. I got a question for you. Did I hear this wrong? I was making a list of things because they were telling us real early what the rules are on the station and making a big deal out of stuff you can and can't do. And big thing about drugs. I immediately got a sense that drug smuggling was going to be a big thing in the show. And then there's something about there's a big thing about gambling, and it sounded like gambling was illegal. And then 10 minutes later, there's a casino.
Gambling's not illegal.
Gambling's not illegal. Okay, because I made a note that gambling is illegal, and I don't know what that was about. I'll have to go back and watch it again. Okay, so gambling is not illegal.
No.
Okay. I'll have to look at that again. I don't know where I got that.
But you can't gamble on duty? Like maybe there's something with that?
Maybe that's what it is? I don't know. I have no idea. Obviously not knowing the show, I'm latching on to weird stuff.
Yeah.
That's good. And that's gonna happen with you in DS9.
Absolutely.
So anyway, I just want to throw that out there. Ambassador G'Kar immediately struck me as the character that was supposed to be the like really interesting, fascinating character that everybody was supposed to latch onto, and I did. That guy is played by an actor who in TNG plays a recurring Romulan named Tomalak, and he's just playing Tomalak if Tomalak was a regular on a TV show.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know he had any Star Trek connection.
Yeah, it's fantastic. He's basically Picard's big Romulan nemesis throughout that show. He comes back during the finale when Picard's jumping back and forth between time periods, and he whatever time period he's in, he'll black out for a minute, and then whoever is looking at him thinks that he's blacked out for a while, and so at one point when he's in the future, Tomalak goes, "How long are we going to stare at each other across the neutral zone?" And he's just using the exact same voice that he ends up using here. And it's
well,
so
and there's
I'm very excited because I didn't know I was going to get to watch that actor for 5 whole seasons, and apparently he's in the show for 5 whole seasons. So that's exciting. What were you gonna say?
well, I was just gonna say. Now I don't remember. It was something about Jakar. Oh, Jakar might be the smoking gun. The DS9. Because did I mishear there was a character named Jakart? Is that not the villain of DS9?
Are you talking about Ducat?
Ducat. Okay, I thought there was a character named Jakart. Okay, never mind. It's not as close as I thought it was.
No. Ducat. Yeah. Ducat is, but they are certainly in a lot of ways foils for each other. Kind of analogs, because I get the feeling that, well, not get the feeling from the end of this episode, at least right now, it's true that Jakar is very much Sinclair's arch nemesis, and you'll see this very complex relationship with Cisco and Ducat all the way through, where that's Cisco's Joker.
I kind of got that feel, but I didn't. I mean, we'll talk about it. I didn't know if he was the villain for the season or the whole show or.
Yeah, he comes in and out.
Okay.
Which again, maybe I'm telling you too much, but I got the fact that Jakar is in all 5 seasons of the show spoiled for me by Wikipedia. So.
Well, I mean, this pilot spoils what happens to him.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, if you understand that this show was completely planned out ahead of time, when they tell you something's going to happen later in the pilot, there's a good chance it's going to happen.
I did think that it was preposterous how totally conspicuous and obviously mustache twirling and bad Jakar is, and that he's able to get away with anything.
I will tell you he's not a bad guy.
Oh, he's not?
He is not a bad guy.
But then what's with the private conversation about his wanting to, like, take over things and conquer and stuff?
We'll get more into it next week, but...
Okay. See, I'm sitting here making assumptions, because, I mean, I don't know.
His race were slaves to Lando's race.
Right.
And they just want to be a bigger part of the galaxy. They want a bigger piece of the pie. They're not... I mean...
Oh, okay. So he's not going to be Ducat then.
He is not Ducat. No, absolutely not.
But isn't it true that he was responsible for the shape-shifting hologram guy, and that he set all this up, and it was a master manipulation plot?
Yeah.
So he did all that. So he's clearly the antagonist for this episode.
Yeah. No one is good or bad in the show. Well, I mean, people are maybe more good or more bad.
Right.
Calling him good or bad, I think, would be too simple. But I will tell you, I wouldn't define him as a bad guy.
And that's probably partly because I don't know enough about Sinclair yet.
Yeah, well,
but I don't know.
His main relationship, if he has a Joker or a Batman, it's Londo.
Yeah, I got that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
With Sinclair, another criticism I want to lob at it real quick is I liked the idea of making us suspicious of him early, but I thought we made it clear too quickly that he wasn't responsible for things.
Okay.
That was the thing I had, where I just thought that the suspense could have been handled a little bit better. One of the things I'm really interested in with this show, and JMS must have thought of this when he was putting this together, is that it feels, and I don't know what the whole show is going to look like, but just the setup of it feels very much like a world that wants to be Star Trek and just isn't there yet.
Okay, I've never gotten that vibe, but like I'm not going to disagree.
You've got these races that are trying to figure out how to get along and dealing with like past wars and stuff they're trying to get over, and they're trying to form some kind of an alliance that reminds me of what the Federation would become.
Okay, can I put forth a theory on that, or
yeah,
maybe a counter viewpoint?
yeah.
I think maybe you could view it as Star Trek, at least TOS and TNG, are kind of the utopian, optimistic version of what this galaxy would look like, and B5 is a more cynical, realistic, political version of what that universe would look like.
Well, maybe so. I mean, I just need to. Yeah, I'm not sure that our two ideas are really like even counter to each other.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because some of these people are kind of trying to get along, and they're just not able to manage it as well. You know what I mean? So like, I just feel like what I said kind of still holds. But like, it wishes it was Star Trek. It's just either not there yet or it can't be because it's a more realistic. You see what I'm saying?
I would go with can't be, in the same way that like our world can't be. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll talk about that more when we see more of DS9 and how it handles the whole utopian side of Star Trek. Because that becomes, with DS9, a thing that becomes really kind of arguable as to whether or not it really is. But also,
and that's something that I've heard about DS9.
But also, the thing you got to remember with Star Trek is that the whole utopian side is simply Earth. You know, it's not
That's
like
true.
the whole galaxy is that way. And
even Earth isn't in Babylon 5.
And that's what... Right. No, clearly. Sure. I also think it's very interesting that it's set almost exactly in the same year as TOS.
I hadn't noticed that.
That's fascinating to me. JMS no Star Trek, he had to have done that on purpose.
Yeah. If it's the same, it probably is done on purpose.
2258. I forget when exactly TOS be. I said almost the same year. It's within a couple decades ballpark. Speaking of ballpark, I want to mention, and I don't think you get this at all. I can't remember. Oh no, there is a glimpse of it if you're paying attention, where you would know this about Cisco already. Cisco and Sinclair have baseball in common, apparently.
Yes.
I think that's fascinating. There's this wall hanging in Sinclair's office that looked suspiciously like a baseball diamond, and when they pulled back from it, it clearly was, but it was like a space baseball diamond.
Okay. It is a thing, but it's not a common, constantly reoccurring thing. It comes up like here and there. It's not a defining character trait.
Yeah, it is for Cisco.
Okay.
And what makes it interesting with Star Trek is that baseball isn't a thing anymore.
Oh, see, that is something I did not know.
Yeah, and Cisco is, and that's actually something that was previously established in obscure TNG episode.
Okay.
Well, I say obscure. I think the first place we got that was what, Evolution season 2. And then for some reason they remembered it and stuck with it, which is amazing because it was such a throwaway thing. And and so Cisco is really into this sport, this 20th century sport that nobody plays anymore. I think the two things that I'm most fascinated by and interested to learn moving forward is, of course, naturally, Sinclair's missing day. I think that's a fantastic grab for the audience. And also, and just his past and how he feels guilty about the fact that he's considered a war hero, but the war kind of won itself somehow, and he doesn't know how that happened. And also the Vorlons. The Vorlons are fascinating.
You know, it's funny because I made a joke to you after you'd watched this episode about the bad graphics, and I was like, yeah, and Kosh is just a flashlight. That's not in this episode. That's in the first episode. You'll see what I was talking about in the first episode.
Okay, because Kosh is kind of elaborate.
Well, but that's a suit. That is not an alien.
Well, no, I know that, but I assumed we would just never actually see what he looked like.
Well, you'll see what I mean next season or next episode.
Because they make a big deal out of seeing his face, looking at his visage changes you. I thought that was laid on a little thick and kind of funny from the Doctor at the end. There are, by the way, there's some stuff that gets pretty schlocky with the show, but in a lot of the time in kind of a charming way, and that, and then a couple things at the very end. There's a lot of TOS in this show.
I'm going to tell you,
And
you do find
that
out
whole
what the
thing-
Vorlons look like.
Yeah.
And everything they say is not laying it on too thick. That legitimately pays off in a huge
cool.
way. But in the next episode, there's a point where like he's off screen, out of his armor, and it's a flashlight.
The language was pretty hilariously melodramatic.
JMS does that. I would argue the
does he do that
the
all the way
lines
through?
and
again, that's where it gets very TOS-y.
That's just a JMS habit. Like that's in his Spider-Man. That's in
Yeah.
like everything he does. The lines of sand conversation is very JMS-y.
Yes, yeah. The best thing ever. The thing where I laughed out loud was they're learning. It's the telepath and the doctor, and they're learning that that all signs are pointing to Sinclair from reading the Vorlon's mind, and Sinclair like this is such a TV thing. Like he walks in at the most convenient moment, and then she turns around and goes, "It's him!" And then you go to commercial.
Yeah, she's like, wow. Just about to say it. Like, what did you see?
Yeah, and then he walks in
like, what's up,
at that
buddy?
precise moment. I love that.
That is going to be a thing.
Is that kind of thing going to keep going? I thought maybe that was like pilot growing pains.
I would say probably by like season 2, season 3, like we kind of grow past that. We're certainly going to have some more of that kind of stuff in the first season.
I'm not saying that there's no cliche like that in DS9, and I'm not going to say that there's not a ridiculous amount of it in early TNG, but wow, that's hilarious. There's also some very first season TNG stuff in this too.
And no matter what character it is, no one will ever act any better with like psychic attacks. It's always going to be kind of wobbling really? And going, ah!
But yeah, the Vorlon thing was fascinating. I don't know why I don't see people cosplay that.
I don't know either.
Should
That's
be a cosplay thing. It's because it's amazing. It's a lovely costume, and I love the vortex face.
Yeah.
Just the vortex face. It's fantastic. Okay, we had a private conversation a couple days ago before, obviously before we had started recording. So are you telling me that the different colored superpowered rings never come back?
As far as I can remember, no.
Okay, that seemed like a major setup to me for some, right? Like I didn't know if it was a secret stash of superpowered rings or what it was, but I could not believe because Jakar says something about unlimited willpower, and then I made a Green Lantern Sarah made a Green Lantern joke to me, and seconds later she pulls out a gravity ring and it's like 4 Ravages, 5 Ravages, and I'm like, holy crap, she's got the whole spectrum of Lantern rings.
Yeah,
and I was really excited to see those come back.
There's more of their technology and stuff, but I don't recall ever if those rings come back, they're never like made a big deal of. Like it'll just be something she has. I don't remember that.
I don't remember her last name. I think her name is Laurel. The girl that runs the command station.
Okay.
Her acting is abysmal.
She's gone next episode.
Is she really? Does she never come back?
A couple of these characters are, because there's 6 months between the pilot and the first episode, some of these characters don't come back, and they're not recast. They are new characters next episode.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah, next episode is kind of a second pilot.
So it very much has, in a lot of ways, the pilot or the Cage TOS pilot thing. Then
yeah, if the Cage was the actual pilot, and then we aired the first episode and just kind of said everyone was new characters, yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, yeah.
Like if you actually aired the Cage first.
Yes.
Yeah, wow. Okay. Fascinating. Well, that I don't mind that at all, because she was awful.
Yeah, no, she's really bad.
May I say, by the way, that and this might be,
the Doctor's not great either, and he also gets replaced.
Oh, I didn't mind him, except that's weird because boy, it sure seemed like he was going to be like, and that's really interesting too, because he reminded me of the Doctor in the Cage who gets replaced immediately. Wow. Okay. So that guy,
the telepath also gets replaced, but I think she comes back.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so that guy, I thought was okay, but there were a couple of words that he would mispronounce as if they were alien words, but they were actually real words.
Like what?
My favorite is he does it a couple times, and I can't remember. I don't know if I have a note about the second one. My favorite is toward the beginning. He's listing. He has a list of elements or like gases, and he says methane. No, that's methane.
Methane.
Dude. It's methane. That's a real thing. It's not technobabble. He's saying things like they're technobabble. Methane is my favorite. Okay, so this is a question I had for you. The doctor goes characters that we'll never see again. The doctor.
I don't even know what the doctor's name is. Because he doesn't come back. I think it's Robert.
I have his last name listed someplace. So he goes to Laurel, not to be confused with our favorite lawyer who died. Spoiler alert for Arrow.
Oh, really? She died?
You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, they killed her off.
Oh. Thank God.
Yeah, but they didn't do hardly anything with her this season, so they treated her like she was suddenly super important.
Was she the person in the grave?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Cool. I'm sure she'll be back next season.
Yeah, we've already gotten her Earth 2 counterpart.
There you go.
Once. Anyway, sorry if I spoiled that for people that care.
Spoiled it for me.
Because you're never going to watch that.
I'm never going back.
Anyway, so just a couple more quick things, and then we can move on to the other show. By the way, we're going to have a time limit on this show past this.
This episode's long because it's the pilots, so it's the introduction, and both of these pilots are 2-hour pilots.
Yeah, and we wanted to make sure that we really took our time and got some background out of the way. And frankly, Eric, I feel like it was smart for us to just kind of feel each other out a little bit.
Yeah, well, and I mean, a lot of this was largely like preamble about the shows. I don't know if we've actually gone on that long just about B5 so far. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Yeah. We talked for a good 15 or 20 minutes before,
yeah.
At least. Okay, so the doctor goes to Laurel to suggest scanning the Vorlon without their government's permission, and they don't tell the commander so that he'll have plausible deniability. But he has already been decided toward the beginning of the episode to examine him without his or their permission, and for the doctor to be able to look onto his face. So wouldn't he have been on board with that plan? Like they've already broken the rules.
Can I tell you that's actually a plot point that will come up in a later episode?
Are you serious? That matters? Okay. Okay. So
actually, remember I told you season 1 is one of my favorite episodes of the whole show. It's a plot point in that episode.
So you're saying that somehow or rather that's not actually a mistake?
Kind of.
Okay, I just thought it was weird that but this is kind of a character motivation thing. I thought it was weird that they didn't go to him with it, because they had to have known, obviously, because the doctor looked at the Vorlon's face, that like he already. It's kind of like that. TNG does this in a place or two. It's kind of like that scenario where like a doctor really needs to do an autopsy, but it's against the family's like religion or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing. But like we really need to know that information. Like they did that whole scenario, but like really early, and he was not just complicit, but it was his idea. Like I thought that was strange.
Yeah, it's kind of a plot point that's addressed. It kind of, I mean, my explanation would be, given how it's kind of addressed later, is that what he did at the beginning was already crossing a line, and so doing anything further with his knowledge would be even further crossing that line.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would have totally understood it. Well, I can't remember now. Did that come before or after he was the primary suspect in the poisoning of the Vorlon?
It would have had to come before, right?
Yeah, because if it was after, then I wouldn't have even questioned it.
Yeah.
You know? So the poisoning of the Vorlon was the thing that I was like, why didn't we just lead with that? We do that clunky pilot thing, and to be fair, DS9 does it too, where the first half an hour we're just setting up characters and
and in this case,
backstory,
we're setting up the
mythology,
entire universe, really. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this has a lot more legwork to do because DS9 is at least already in a pre-established universe. Although there are things about that where even if you know your Star Trek, it's kind of a hard slog at that first half an hour. So they both have that problem. But man, I just wish that he had just started telling a story right away and let those things come out organically, because he started doing that more and more as it went along. Once he had those, and you could argue, well, we needed to be introduced to those characters in the first place. But I don't know about that because I kept trying to remember who they were and what their names were and what mattered about them, and just wish that they had been like once they started being integrated in story, I was interested in. Then I started remembering things about them. So we should have just led with the Vorlon poisoning thing right away.
I mean, there's no real way to know whether or not there was studio interference and the first half hour needs to introduce this universe to the audience.
You can see why I'm saying that though.
Yeah, and there's it's one of those things where I could see a studio or anyone really, it doesn't even have to be the studio. We like to blame the studio, but someone saying, no, you need to explain this to the audience. This is a pilot.
Yeah.
Things like that happen all the time,
Also, and some of this is just a naval thing, but Enterprise seems to have derived its uniforms from this show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you go look at Enterprise, their uniforms are real similar.
Well, it's funny because they switch uniforms halfway through.
Oh, okay.
Kind of. We get new uniforms later.
Oh, and Takar has gills. That's just awesome. And they're implants, and he's like, yeah, it hurt a lot, but it was worth it. I'm like, yeah. I just love that guy. I loved him before I found out that he's not a bad guy.
So I guess, is that if you had to pick a favorite of this episode, it would be Jakar?
It would be Jakar, most certainly.
I wonder if that will keep.
Wow. And some of that is, I felt comfortable and at home with him, even though I apparently read him wrong. But it somewhat helped that I knew that actor, and I was I was excited by the performance because of that. Sinclair I got more interested in once we got his backstory. Oh, by the way, his relationship, the love interest was kind of awful.
Yeah.
That whole thing wasn't great.
No.
And there was a lot of really typical TV romance stuff going on with that I won't get into. And I mean, obviously I'm really interested in Kosh, but there's not a performance there yet. If there ever will be a performance.
Arguably there's never a performance.
If he's a flashlight, then
you've never
seen a better flashlight.
It's not even a suit that you can act in.
You can't act in it. No, it just stands there. Yeah. He looks. This will be a really obscure reference to you and probably 99% of the audience, but he looks like the bad guy, the final boss in Nights into Dreams for the Sega Dreamcast. I'll send you a picture. He looks just like that.
Okay. Maybe that also ripped off Babylon 5. Because it would have come out after.
What was that? Yeah, 96. Yeah, maybe it did. Maybe it did.
It's interesting. I never thought about it because there isn't really a performance with Kosh, but Kosh is fascinating always.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, and I sure thought he was here. But yeah, Jakar was definitely the most interesting character to me.
I'll tell you who my favorite character of the whole show is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Garibaldi. Garibaldi's my favorite.
Yeah, I figured you were gonna say that. Just something about the way you've talked about him before.
It's a great name for a dog. I want to get a pug and name it Garibaldi.
Yeah, he didn't grab me yet, but he didn't get a whole lot to do.
And I also really like Londo. Londo will grow on you, I hope.
Yeah, we'll see.
His hair will get shorter and more controlled. There's a story about his hair. But yeah.
Yeah, I like I like that that we get some kind of a conscience from him as early as we do.
Yeah.
Like we get a glimpse of that, and that like he's blackmailed and he does the wrong thing, but he feels really bad about it, and you don't get and it's hard to tell before that if he cares about anyone or anything. So
Well,
I
it's
was glad
funny
they did
because you
that.
could probably argue he's more a villain than Jakar for the entire series. At least more of an antagonist. I don't know. They're
Yeah,
both
sure.
very complicated characters.
Yeah, well, and you'll know what I'm talking about the more you watch DS9, but and maybe he'll seem less this way the more I watch this show. But he seemed like a foil for Quark to me because I mean he doesn't run a bar, but he's in a bar a lot, and they're both.
Quark is the character that seemed most interesting to me in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, well, and he is really interesting. But yeah, they're both they're both gamblers, and they're both big risk takers. And
and
they break the law a lot, and
at least I mean
they risk going to jail a lot.
you don't get a lot of Quark, but Quark also seems like he's kind of fallen from maybe a loftier perch.
Yes.
It's not yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, he kind of has bad luck a lot, but some of his falling from a loftier perch is just that the is just the state of that station right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, with Londo, it's more of a thing where, like, and they kind of talk about this. He comes from a race of people that were like the Romans, like they were the great conquerors,
Yeah.
and now they aren't. They're almost kind of the laughingstock. There's a reason his clothes are very bright, like he's kind of a clown. That's all intentional.
Yeah. Okay. That's really interesting. And it's interesting if he comes from a race of conquerors that now he's having to like hoodwink people and stuff to survive.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
it's like really demeaning and stuff. And his people seemed really fascinating with their culture of whatever your forefathers did reflects on you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's very Klingon.
The other thing I'm gonna note moving forward, just into the next episode.
Yes.
Some of the costumes change.
Oh, okay.
Jakar's costume gets a little bit more refined, and Delen's costume changes kind of completely.
Who's that?
She is
that
the
now?
boneheaded woman.
Okay. Yeah.
She looks. I forgot how weird she looks in this. She clearly has like face prosthetics on, and we kind of move away from that.
She's so that's the woman that's also bald in the front, right?
Yes.
You're talking the bone, yeah.
Yeah.
So she's played by the actress who played Rousseau in Lost, and I've actually met her at a con.
Oh, that's really cool.
Of course, I didn't know anything about Bab 5 at the time, and the one question I asked about Lost, she wouldn't answer.
What was the one question?
So that was interesting. I can't remember. She kind of disappeared from the show, and it was weird that she wasn't on it for a long time. And I asked about that, and I guess she was bitter with the producers, and she didn't want to talk about it.
Oh, okay.
And she seemed irritated that the question came up, and I couldn't help but think, like, I mean, I understand that, but like your main billing on the flyer for this con is Lost. Like, you gotta expect somebody to ask that. We haven't seen you in 2 years. That's why the show is still on.
Right.
But anyway, okay, let's get into DS9 now.
All right.
And get Eric's initial thoughts and what he was able to glean. I feel like we're maybe both having this thing of we're talking about a thing we don't know if we really know anything about, even though we watched an episode.
I can tell you my immediate initial reaction to the pilot was, I mean, I've told you before, I was kind of confused, but more than that, I was off-put. This is way more mystical than I ever would have thought Star Trek was. And it's not even like magic mysticism, but there's a lot of visions and mindscapes and I never thought of Star Trek as that kind of science fiction. So that was very unsettling just from the get-go, that It's not what I think of as Star Trek. Not in a bad way.
Just so you know, Star Trek does tend to go there more often than you would imagine.
Well, and then I was thinking about it.
Because something I thought of, because I hadn't watched that pilot in a while, and something I thought of is every modern, with sort of the exception of Enterprise, but it still sort of has this. Every modern Trek show, so everything past TOS, has some, like, all-powerful being in the pilot. They all do that.
Q.
You've got Q, and then we got the Banjo Man in Voyager, and then you've got Future Guy in Enterprise. Like, he's just a guy that sends his voice back through time, but from Archer's perspective, he's pretty powerful. They didn't think time travel was possible. So you have an almost all powerful character in each of those.
Is it the Prophets in this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Now the difference, of course, is that, I mean, Q shows up in and out all the way through TNG. And he bookends that show. But the Prophets are, one of the big things that holds the whole show together. The entire series is about the conflict between Bajor and Cardassia and their religion, and how Sisko factors into their religion.
Well, and just prophets in general don't seem very Star Trek to me.
But we end up. I mean, we talk plenty about that and how odd that is for Starfleet, and you're going to see a whole lot of Starfleet being very uncomfortable that one of their commanders is seen as the emissary for a religion.
I'm not saying it's a problem. I'm just
sure.
I didn't expect it. I can tell you there are things that remind me of Babylon 5. That is not the science fiction story I think of when I watch this. This reminded me a lot of the opening of Dune.
Oh, really?
Looking at the Cardassians as the Harkonnens, as the previously occupying force that is being forced to leave because of political meanderings, and then the father and son that come to take over. Obviously, in Dune, Paul is the main character, not Leto.
See, I've still never gotten through Dune. I wouldn't have made that comparison. That's fascinating.
And there's even something else, like, I can't remember what it was, but there's something else that pointed out to me, or that I noticed. I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of Dune. Like, I mean, it's not Dune, but I wouldn't say it's a ripoff of Dune, but it's one of those things like Dune is a really important science fiction work, and I wouldn't be surprised if even subconsciously it influenced this.
Yeah. Wow. That's insightful. Well done.
So, and I did not get that from SF Tabriz. He doesn't mention Dune once.
Good job.
But yeah, no.
You should send him that, and he'll be like, crap.
But that was a big thing that I was like, it made maybe the earlier stuff a little bit easier, where I was like, oh, this kind of feels like Dune, and I love Dune. Just instead of focusing on the son, you're focusing on the father. Sisko's son doesn't feel like he's really present. Like, he's there, but I don't know how much I like the kid actor, and I feel like he's not in it as much as he could be.
He gets better.
Okay.
Certainly, but yeah, I've never been the biggest Jake Sisko fan.
It felt like it was supposed to be...
And I've never been the biggest, and I hate to say, I've never been the biggest Sirach Lofton fan either. And I do think he gets a little bit better as it goes along, but...
If it felt like, at least for this pilot, like, it starts like it's supposed to be a father and son story, and then the son just kind of disappears for most of it.
Yeah.
And, like, we just kind of touch back on him.
Some of that, I think, is the novelty of... look, it's different from other Starship captains in the past. Picard is, and there's a whole lot in that pilot of comparing him to Picard.
Yeah, well, Picard's there.
Yeah, but Picard is the older captain that hates children.
That's true.
And doesn't like that there are families on his starship. And now we go to this derelict alien space station, and this guy has to bring a kid to a place that's not really good for kids to go, because that's where he has to go. And we haven't really dealt with... We've never had a captain that had a family.
Which is something that I mean, like, I didn't necessarily know that, but it definitely stuck out to me as something that felt different, that
Yeah.
he had a son. Um, and we open with, I don't know if you'd call it a flashback because nobody's remembering it. We open with,
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, it is a flashback because it happens in the past.
well, or does it happen in the present and then we skip forward?
Oh, no, certainly not, because you have another show that's on, and this happens parallel with it.
Okay.
So, no, it's a flashback. Otherwise, present day is best of both worlds.
Or I guess you could just call it prologue more
Yeah.
than the flashback. Flashback seemed like the wrong word. So one of the things with this show is, and I messaged you about this after I watched it, I was like, oh, I don't know anything about Star Trek. And I've never felt like I didn't know anything. I feel like through osmosis, I know like a bit about Star Trek. I know enough to kind of pass from being friends with you and watching SF Debris reviews and like, I've seen...
And the stuff you've seen.
Yeah, and I've seen most of the movies. But then I realized I've seen bits and pieces of shows here and there, but not a lot. Like, most of my exposure to Star Trek, watching it, is the films. And even then, I haven't seen all the films. And so, watching
Yeah,
this,
that's
I
certainly
realized...
not a good sampling of A, what's important, and B, what's really good when you get to TNG anyway.
Yeah, well, and I said this doesn't feel like what I would
The
think.
TNG movies are not indicative of what that show is.
Yeah, and I've only seen one of them.
Yeah. And that's the one that is,
Contact.
I guess, closer, or at least the best. But anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But so even when I say like this doesn't feel like I think Star Trek would, that's very much an I think Star Trek would, because I don't have a genuine understanding or appreciation of this series. It's a lot vicariously. So when this opens with Best of Both Worlds, I knew that it was Best of Both Worlds. But I didn't know whether it was footage from Best of Both Worlds. Like, I didn't know if Cisco was a character that existed in that episode and then they spun him off, or if it was entirely new footage, and you've told me it's entirely new footage. And so that was just kind of interesting. Where like the two parts of my brain, like it's that geek inferiority complex.
Right.
It's those two sides of my brain connecting where I was like, I know that this is Best of Both Worlds. I have never seen that episode, so I don't know whether this is from Best of Both Worlds. Yeah,
that would have been amazing if they'd had that kind of forethought.
Well, if it was from the episode, I would have just assumed he was just a one-off character that they thought was interesting and decided to spin off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also, even with my limited knowledge, and I know you said TNG was kind of the most popular show on television, so they didn't have to worry about this. But if you didn't know that, if you didn't know anything about TNG, opening with a character that's later in this episode as a half robot cyborg and never touching that again.
That's a really good point. And then to have the prophets use that image.
Yeah.
Yeah, then that gets weird. No, that's a really good point.
But I could also see an argument. Who would ever watch this in a vacuum?
Well, but that's the thing. What I was about to say is a lot of people did. Tons of people did. Oh, yeah. Because DS9 is such a different kind of show that there are a lot of people that only like DS9 and aren't Star Trek fans except for Deep Space Nine. I don't know how many of them started with it from scratch when it began. But that's one of the reasons I thought even with your limited Trek knowledge this would probably be okay is there are a lot of people and once you get past the first season there's not nearly as much crossover and stuff and of course these characters come into their own but yeah, no, I know several people that only like DS9.
Were they confused by the half-robot man who is in the episode later completely fine and kind of being a jerk?
I don't know. The thing is, like a lot of people have seen Best of Both Worlds if they've seen any TNG.
Right.
Or know of that as like a big, kind of
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
iconic thing.
It's so culturally, especially at least geek culture, I feel like it's impossible not to know that. But in a vacuum,
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. One thing, let me throw this out there real quick, just so you know, and I won't like steal your thunder. But you asked me when we were chatting about this back and forth, if a lot of these characters, you were worried that a lot of these characters, if not all of them, were people we had seen before.
yes.
And I'll let you know which ones are and which ones aren't. There are, right out the gate, the only person that, as far as main cast, obviously Picard has a couple cameos. But the only person really that was recurring in TNG that we had ever seen before was O'Brien.
And he is the red-headed gentleman?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he's the engineering chief, and so O'Brien's interesting because he's not in the most episodes of Star Trek. Certainly, he's just a recurring character. He wasn't a title character until we got to DS9, but he is overall, I think, probably in the most seasons of Star Trek.
Well, it's funny because he's the one I felt the least lost on.
He's in the pilot of TNG.
Oh, wow.
He goes, and he didn't have a name yet.
But yeah, no, that's amusing given that he was the character I felt the least lost on. Like, I was like, oh, well, he clearly has a backstory. But it doesn't seem confusing, and like, I didn't feel like I missed anything with him.
Yeah, well, you don't need to know very much. He's the transporter chief. It kind of bugs me. I never thought of this until I watched this episode again. It's weird to me that he doesn't get a bigger send-off from the crew.
Is he from the Enterprise?
Well, yeah, like I said, he lives on the Enterprise. He was there
for
the pilot of TNG.
Okay.
There are several episodes that he's in, and importantly, he is our connection to the Cardassians. From previous material. So
I'm very confused on, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay. The Cardassians and the Bajorans were, I think the Bajorans also, were, the Cardassians especially, introduced no, I think just the Cardassians, introduced in an episode called The Wounded. And that episode is all about O'Brien having been in this war that we'd never been told about, but apparently just ended, with the Cardassians.
As you do.
And right, and he is, well, that's what happens when you're doing episodic television, but you also want to keep a continuity going.
Right.
And he's like really racist against the Cardassians because of all the stuff he saw in the war. And so that's a lot of the reason he's in this show. Is because of his and
that makes sense.
His relationship with them.
Now you explain that, but
mm-hmm. Well, and you wouldn't get that from the pilot, but you will hear things about that background and the battle was set at Setlik 3 and stuff.
Okay, cool.
As you go along, but he's the only one. Kira, who is the first officer and the female Bajoran character, she was originally supposed to be a character that was in TNG.
Is she the one with the things over her nose?
Yes.
Okay.
And you'll see that a lot because that's the Bajorans.
I didn't think she was a great actress.
She'll grow on you.
Okay.
I hope she'll grow on you. She's awful in the pilot, and frankly, okay. I used to hate Kira, and she grew on me.
Okay.
But no, you're absolutely right. But anyway, there's a character in TNG that's a recurring character that's added in I think season 5 named Rolaren, and she's our introduction to the Bajorans. And she's really the big thing that we know about. She's how we know things about the Bajorans before that. They called them the Bajora all over TNG, and then later on it becomes Bajorans. They're still doing that in this, but that goes away. But okay. But originally Kira was supposed to be her, and for a couple of different reasons they ended up making a different character. But that's what O'Brien's referring to when he asks Sisko if he's ever dealt with female Bajorans before.
Okay. He
has this line where he's like, "Have you ever dealt with female Bajorans?" And he's like, "No." And then O'Brien just kind of grimaces, or just kind of grins and walks away. That's a subtle reference to Rolaren.
Okay, so I think as you're talking, I've kind of been figuring out, I think, why I felt kind of lost.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm done. I just wanted to tell you that
No, no,
stuff.
no, no, no. So I think I realized what it is. It's that everyone's kind of coming to this station from different places, and I get the sense that they all seem to have a history with each other in various different ways. And I think that's why I felt so lost was it's I feel like these characters are meeting each other for the first time, or at least I'm seeing them meet for the first time.
Most of them are.
Okay, I don't know. I got the sense that...
I mean, Cisco and Kira don't know each other. Cisco knows the previous incarnation of Dax.
Yeah, well, so if any character seems really interesting and fascinating to me, it's Dax. I'm really intrigued by just the idea of that character.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to ask
cool.
you, so I didn't sound dumb.
No, it's fine.
What exactly its deal was? Because there's an implication that last time Cisco saw her, she was different, and that she's very old because she says 28 and he's like more like 328. And then we get this flashback to some kind of ritual where there's an old man and they open up his stomach and take out like this slug thing and put it in this girl's body. And so I wasn't sure if the slug was the being and it just moved from host to host, if the slug was like transferring the consciousness of that old man into this woman. Now you've said it's just kind of it builds on the consciousness of each person, so they're still themselves but they're also the previous people.
Yeah, so it's a straight up symbiotic relationship.
Right. Okay.
And importantly, not all trills are joined. In fact, a very small percentage of trills are joined.
Okay. She's a trill, which is the slug thing, right?
She is a trill, which is the humanoid species, and then the slug thing is a trill symbiote.
Okay, so
she has a weird line in that. They kind of feel it out and figure it out as it goes along. She has that line about a joined species. That's retconned later, where like they're not all joined. Most of them aren't joined.
But okay, so all of those slug things are in trill, but not all trill have those slug things in them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
they all have the ability to, and in fact, we saw in the one episode that had that species. Although I don't know if they can still do this after that. That in TNG that trill symbiotes can be put into humans apparently.
Which is until you said this right now, I just assumed it could be moved from species to species. Like if you go into a Vulcan and a
yeah, I'm honestly not 100% sure, but and I can't remember if we ever see that happen again.
I didn't realize that what she was and what was in her were actually connected.
They are, yeah.
Okay.
And like there are a lot of like really specific criteria that make a particular trill host adapt, like what's the word I'm looking for? That they go together.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was confused by that the more I thought about it. Just because I was like, okay, so what exactly is this? But I thought the idea was really interesting. I assume that the relationship
compatible was the word I was looking for. It's like 3 a.m. here.
Yeah. It's almost 4 here. But I was I assume that there's going to be something with the relationship she has with that guy later.
You mean the previous host?
No. With the guy she's dating.
She's not actually dating Bashir.
Oh, well.
Yeah, that turns into a person going after someone that's not interested.
From which side?
From Bashir's side. Bashir like when Cisco says.
So she's just kind of having fun, and he's
yes, very much so. Yeah, when Cisco says he's too young, she totally agrees with him.
Well, she says I'm 28, and he says you're 320. Okay, okay, all right. So that makes sense.
But anyway,
Well, that would
yeah.
still be drama with that relationship. I assume there would be
Oh,
some kind
true.
of
And there,
tension and weirdness
yeah, and there will
because
be.
she is much
Most
older.
certainly.
Okay.
And that has a lot to do with what they do with Bashir's whole like being naive and wet behind the ears thing.
We get Quark very, very little bit.
Yeah.
I like him. I think he has a lot of potential. He's barely in this, but I kind like he was in it enough that I got a sense for that I liked him. And I feel like he's
you'll find that is one of the most consistent characterizations from the pilot on and performances from the pilot on.
well, and
He and Odo both.
I recognize him. Like just from pop culture osmosis, I recognize him. So I assumed he was important because he looked familiar. Okay.
Well, and do you know Armin Shimmerman,
Oh
the actor that plays Quark?
no.
That's Principal Skinner in Buffy.
Oh no way.
Who by the way, that's one of those rare times where he had dual recurring roles at the same time. He was doing
That's
this and
really
that at exactly the same time.
That's really cool.
Later on, because I mean, like this started in '93. He was still in this show, but then he got cast in Buffy in '97.
And he's not. I mean, he's not a main character in Buffy, so like I could see how.
Yeah, it'd be easy for him to jump in and out. But he's very much an every episode character in this. He's
Yeah. All right, I have a question.
yes.
Star Trek is known for its science. I mean, also it's technobabble, but like Star Trek is kind of well regarded. Does no one know what an orb looks like? Because
What do you mean?
we have this like shake weight looking thing that they keep calling an orb, but
That's the box that houses it.
Oh,
You saw the orb spinning inside of it.
didn't put that together.
No,
Okay,
I didn't.
okay.
I didn't either the first time I saw it. I
Okay.
had exactly the same thing, but yeah.
I was like, an orb's not an alien word. It's a pretty standard thing that we have.
Can I tell you what I don't like about the way the orb thing is handled?
What don't you like?
Well, it's kind of used to as a cheap way to provide backstory.
Yes.
I don't know why Dax has an orb experience that tells her a thing she knows already. Like, why does it take her back to... I mean, I guess that was a significant thing that recently happened to her, but there's never any talk of it again. That's just this, like we did a flashback at the beginning of the show, and I realized that, it's linear, as you said earlier, but, like, if you're gonna do that, just, like, flash back to it. It's less gimmicky. I mean, I still don't love that, but it's less gimmicky than that.
Well,
That was
and
really
I was
strange.
kind of confused with everything regarding the orb. I didn't know why it was picking the memories it was picking, and
I don't
why,
either.
and what
Couldn't
they
tell you.
what they also you know, SF Debris has gone on and on, even in his like reviews for the Star Trek movies, about how much of like a badass Cisco is. He's never gonna live down saying "ow."
Oh, I know. I knew you were going to bring that up. He has other moments like that.
Oh, good. At least he's consistent.
Yeah, no, that will keep happening. Avery Brooks makes strange choices.
Well, and what's so weird
I love
is
Avery Brooks. He has some absolutely wonderful, magnificent performances in that show. By the way, the whole Cisco badass thing, that kind of happens later.
well,
I mean,
and
there's some of it
everything
early on,
I know
but-
about Cisco, which isn't much. I know him as a bald guy with a goatee, and I was surprised that he doesn't have that. Kind of like when I watched whatever the pilot for TNG is. But so that was just weird. Where I was like the one thing that like I knew going into this show wasn't there, and that was a bald guy with a goatee.
Yeah, which is what he looked like in the previous TV show he starred in called Spencer for Hire. and they asked him to grow his hair out and shave that so that he would look different and he wouldn't be associated with that character.
And Sisko doesn't, given that reputation, I didn't get that vibe from Sisko, so that makes sense that you say it comes later. So yeah, I was really kind of lost and confused with the visions, and then he goes to the prophets, and there's other visions, and I know at some point there's probably going to be a holodeck episode, because when the vision first starts, I assumed it was a holodeck thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, because I know holodecks are a thing.
I mean, yeah, there are holodeck episodes, because it's that period in Star Trek, and they love their holodecks.
Yeah, and so when we first when we first had that vision, I kind of assumed that we cut to him on the holodeck, like, with memories of his wife.
Well, I mean, you actually... Well, remember, though, that we saw that start as an orb experience.
You're right, maybe it's not that one. There was
like,
at least one vision that I thought was a holodeck thing.
Well, what you might be confused about is that we actually are in a holodeck at the beginning.
Oh no, you've gone silent.
Oh, can you hear me?
You're back.
Okay, what you might be confused about is that we actually are in a holodeck toward the beginning.
Maybe that's it.
When Sisko and Jake are fishing, they're just in a holodeck on a ship.
No, I think I caught that one, because that's at the very, very beginning.
Okay, because I mean, every other place where it's a vision, they make it clear that it's a vision.
Okay, well, and then there's the weird vision that I like conceptually, but not sure I love the execution, where they're seeing it differently.
I have no idea why that is. I don't know why.
And it's not written
it's
particularly...
It's pointless, right?
Well, and it's written... Well, I didn't know if that was the thing that would, like, come back later.
Not to my recollection, and if there is a point to it, I'm lost on it. I don't know what that's about.
I thought maybe it was supposed to, like, reflect their perceptions or something.
Well, yeah, sort of, but, like, it doesn't really tell me anything about their personalities, and then what's weird about it is that, like before you know anything about these characters, it'd be pretty easy to look at that as maybe the prophets are looking into their souls and knows that one is more pessimistic than the other, or one's in a better place in their life right now, and that's reflective of all of that, right? But the problem is, you get to the end of the vision, or you get to the end of that part of it, and suddenly Dax is seeing exactly what he's seeing like it's reality, but it's still not reality.
Yeah.
Because they're in the middle of the wormhole, so I never really understood that.
Well, and I didn't think it was written
If anybody thinks they know what they're doing there, feel free to tell me that in the comments. I don't think I've ever talked the pilot to DS9 really out like this with anybody, to be honest with you.
It's one of the things when I watched the DSF Debris review, he also doesn't know why it is.
Okay, because I have a tendency to skip first season when I watch the show, just in its entirety.
Right. And I didn't think that scene was really written well, because there's a point where he says something, he says, like, we're like on a cliffside and it's storming, and she says, like, it's a bright spring day. And I took that wrong at first. At first I was like, oh, it's a viewpoint difference, where, like, she's saying, no, it's not bad and scary, like, this is beautiful. But it wasn't. She was literally seeing something different. And so that was weird. The prophets are there. I don't know where they come from. Are they Bajorn?
So they reside in the wormhole.
I have a question about the wormhole, but we'll get to that.
They are super powerful aliens.
Does he go into the wormhole?
Well, yeah. You saw him go in the wormhole.
Oh, you're right.
They're in the ship, and then
you're right.
And then they're in the wormhole, and then suddenly they're like, oh wait,
sorry,
we can land.
It's 4. Yeah.
How are we landing now? Yeah. That all happens inside the wormhole. But yeah, no, you're cool. But yeah, they reside inside the wormhole, but somehow or rather, at least think that they perceive time differently than we do.
Okay.
Yeah, that whole thing never totally makes sense. The relationship between the Bajorans and the prophets is really interesting, and eventually becomes great. But
so are
the prophets themselves, they set them.
Bajorn?
What happened? No, certainly not. So they are They are a seemingly all-powerful race or a very powerful race anyway, that the Bajorans worship as gods.
Okay. Do they ever interact with Q?
No.
Because that should happen.
No, that should happen. Q's in one episode, and it's throwaway and in the season.
Okay. I was like, well, I know Q exists. Maybe they'll do something with Q, and they'll be cryptic at each other, and that'll be fun.
That'll be fun. Yeah, no, that never happens.
So I didn't fully get them or the wormhole. Why would you build a space station next to a wormhole? Okay, did they build a space station next to a wormhole, or did they build a space station and a wormhole opened?
No, the wormhole's been there for 10,000 years, but nobody knows about it.
Okay.
And the wormhole is, again, the wormhole being where the prophets reside has everything to do with how that's affected that culture.
Okay. Okay, and so I kind of want to round this out. I want to get to
Yeah, sure.
Well, I didn't talk about Picard. I should probably talk about Picard. I thought I came off like a complete jerk in this.
A lot of people think that, yeah.
I never fully understood why he disliked Cisco so much. Like, Cisco literally got there, and the next day, Picard is like, maybe they should think about signing somebody else.
Well, that's in response to his not being enthusiastic about being there and not wanting the assignment, and saying that he's thinking about leaving Starfleet. Like, I don't know. You say that to somebody like Picard, that's all about duty to the service and stuff, and yeah, he's not going to be super nice about it. Like because he's taken this major long-term assignment, and he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about leaving. I don't really want to be here. This sucks. Like,
yeah,
you can kind of see why Picard... I mean, yeah, his reaction does seem a little bit extreme. He's also projecting because he hasn't... And this is a knowing the character of Picard and stuff thing. But it's... but he's projecting, and he has not had to deal very much with... directly with individuals that he affected when he was Locutus. That hit him in a place, and he didn't know what to do about it, because he did not expect Cisco to say that. When Cisco says, we have met before, it was in battle, and you were Locutus, like, he's real. That's what Picard does, where, like, he gets kind of defensive like that when he's in a position where he doesn't know what to say.
Okay, yeah,
he's so used to being in control of a room.
I was going to make a joke about that, where I was like, well, maybe he's just... Maybe he's just, still not over that whole, you tried to kill me as a robot thing. But
yeah, I mean, that's exactly what's going on there. That tension could be better handled. I wish more of something was done with it later. It never comes back again.
I think Picard should be, and I know that this would probably never happen, I feel like Picard should be in more of the episode, because I feel like the conversation just turns too quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Maybe if Picard was there more. Okay.
He's obviously pretty much just there so that it can be a direct spin-off of TNG.
Yeah. I mean,
I
so
figured they can facilitate that.
And I didn't know he was in this, so I was actually pretty happy to see him.
I appreciate the fact that it's done out of a character thing and it doesn't feel gimmicky, but you're right. I mean, he needed to be there more. And at the very least, he needed to come back.
And am I to understand that he's there the whole time? Yes?
Yeah, because you see the ship docked.
And the Enterprise doesn't feel like helping out with this episode at all?
What is there for them to do? Like, well, he's not there the entire time. Like you see the ship undock before anything really happens.
Oh, okay. Well, but he's there at the end.
Is he?
I'm almost positive that yeah, because at the end, doesn't he have a line to Cisco about, like, maybe it's in, like, okay hands?
Oh, yeah.
So they have to be there the whole time, right?
Maybe it comes back. We see the Enterprise disembark, I thought.
Okay.
I forget.
I'm just saying, there's, like, an evil alien that shows up and starts talking on screens, and I would think the Enterprise would be like, well, we're here, we'll help.
Well, yeah, and
I know
also,
that's not in any way realistic, given that this
but
is
it's
a TV
not.
show. And...
But it's also not docked when the station. I mean, when the wormhole stuff happens later, I don't think.
I don't know. I kind of got the impression it was there the whole time because Picard's there at the end of the episode, but I might be wrong. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
I might be wrong too. I don't know. Go ahead.
So Descartes.
It's Ducat. Descartes is something else entirely.
Ducat.
Yes, go Descartes!
I think he's interesting. I think he's playing it really muted, and I get the impression that it's going to be a role that he's going to grow into, and I'm really going to like.
Yeah, I think he will. He's definitely one of my favorite things.
I was very unclear on why they left. It's actually the reason I watched the SF Debris review, was to see if he could explain to me exactly why they left. And it seems to be political, just kind of like putting weight on things and making them leave.
It's a little vague, yeah. And I mean,
I had thought they just like abandoned it, but then they make a line about like them wrecking it. So I was like, okay, so they don't want to leave, but I don't know why they left.
Well, and like maybe you're not fully aware of this. So it's not just a matter of leaving the space station; it's a matter of leaving Bajor entirely. Okay. So they were an occupying force, and they got run out.
Okay.
And that's why they left the station, because they got run out. It is not a Bajoran station; it is a Cardassian space station.
Okay.
That's important. But
I did not. Yeah, I didn't. I was very muddled on some of that stuff.
Oh yeah,
and that's the big stuff. Where I was like, oh, I don't know anything about Star Trek because these two races are really important. I vaguely have ever heard of them.
No, but they're not.
And
they're
they
not
seem
important.
to have a deep-seated.
But understand, all of that is established here. All
okay.
of it.
Okay.
All of it. We know about the Cardassians, and we know about the Bajorans.
Can I tell you, I have a real hard time with that name in 2016.
I know.
There's no way they could have known, but yeah, so that was my biggest kind of muddledness, along with the fact that we have like 6 visions, and I just didn't expect that, and I was never really sure what a lot of that meant.
Yeah, it's padding, really.
That's what it felt like.
I mean, some of it's important, kind of, but like just broad strokes. You know, Sisko's the emissary. The prophets have chosen him. He's gonna do. They're gonna want him to do really important things later, having to do with the Bajorans.
Man, that's a contract you do not want to sign. Something so vague that's just like, you're gonna do really important things for us. Okay, well, what is that?
Oh, yeah. Just wait till you get to the later stuff. Because that's exactly what it feels like, yeah.
So I was really confused about that, and then he shows up, and then he's on the view screen, he's all menacing, and I didn't feel like I understood the politics of the situation.
That will become clear, and the show is certainly wonderful for its politics. Like that all becomes very, very clear, and exactly what happened with the occupation and all of that.
Okay, well, I guess I'll kind of wrap up, and
yeah, sure.
I will say, if I just sat down to watch this on my own, I don't know if this pilot would have interested me enough to continue. But there's enough stuff that like I'm not dreading like watching more. It's not like, it is not something that I dislike, but it's also something where like I feel like if I watched in a vacuum I wouldn't be super engaged by.
I wouldn't either. I mean, DS9 was a holdout show for me. It took me a long time to finally get to it.
Well, and you know, we both kind of talked about. I would say Babylon 5 has a pretty weak first season, and you said you skipped the first season anyways to watch. So like,
there are a number of episodes in that first season I've only ever seen one time.
So I'm willing to give it some leniency on that.
And there will be some TNG stuff I'll have to fill in because there's quite a bit of crossover that first season.
Okay. Well, at least I'll be ready for it.
Oh, well, I mean, not a ton, but there's at least 3 or 4 things where they're not ready to spread their wings yet.
Oh, and there was one thing that I wanted to ask you. Well, I guess it's not really a question. This show kind of has a time jump that doesn't time jump. Cisco gets to the station, says to Quark, "You should run like the casino or whatever, the public area," and then like he goes to sleep, and then the next day there was a lively like casino and like there's gambling and drink, or not casino, bar. There's a lively like bar and people are drinking. I was like, oh, that was fast.
I don't know where the people came from. I don't have a problem with the fact that he was able to set it up that fast. That is his bar. He owns it. That's why he's there in the first place.
And I think I knew that going in, but it was very strange. It was like, you should open a public place, and then like next day, it's a well-populated.
Well, of course,
it looks like people always drink there.
And he was completely packed, like, and ready to leave. So no, I mean, you're right. That is pretty fast. But my big question was, where did all these people come from? Like, I didn't get the sense that the station was that populated again yet. I don't know where all these people came from. And the way that
they're there, it looks like they're regulars.
Yeah, it feels like they're trying to kind of show you what the normal status quo is gonna look like without actually building to it.
Yeah, it was very strange.
I didn't remember that. I was like, wait a minute, why does Quark's bar suddenly look like it always does? It doesn't make any sense.
So yeah, I thought it was an interesting pilot. I'm interested to see where it goes. That's kind of I think the most I have to say about it.
Well, that's how I was with Bab 5. I think in comparing them, and of course it's weird because, like, you know, I know the world that DS9 comes from, and Bab 5 is an establishing thing in the first place. So, like, there are certainly ideas and concepts and things that I was already familiar with Deep Space Nine, but like Babylon 5, I don't know that it's a better pilot than DS9, but it certainly has more interesting ideas right out the gate. And without knowing anything else that is around it, because with Deep Space Nine, I was trying to watch it from the lens of what you would be thinking and feeling while you were watching it, and I kept thinking, if I didn't know what came after this, I don't really think I would understand what was going on with a lot of even the Bajor and Cardassian stuff.
Yeah, I was really lost.
It's not a great pilot.
I'm really glad that you rewatched it, and because when I said to you, I was really lost and confused, and you were like, "So should we not do the show?" I was like, "No, I'm not sure about." I feel better that you rewatched it, and you're like, "Oh yeah, this is really confusing," at least to somebody that doesn't know any of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I was always trepidatious about doing this show because I don't want to watch first season DS9 again.
Oh, see,
but
that doesn't sound good.
But I'm sure watching some of those
Babylon
relationships.
5, when I say it's not a strong first season, I mean it gets better. Not that I would never watch it.
Yeah, I mean, first season DS9 isn't like first season TNG, but it's not great. It's got its gems here and there, I guess, but I don't love it. And then beyond that, there's not a season I would pick out as being awful. A lot of people really dislike the last season. I've got my issues, but we'll get there eventually. Maybe, hopefully, we'll do our level best.
All right.
Well, I think that's going to be it for us today. This was a super long show.
The rest of them will hopefully not be. Maybe some of the finales.
Maybe so. Yeah, where we just have a whole lot of stuff to talk about.
I'm pretty sure
it's come from before.
There's going to be a lot of discussion at the season 2 finale of Babylon 5. I'm sure you won't remember that but I said that by the time we get there. I'm sure I won't remember that I said that by the time we get there. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of discussion about the season 2 finale.
So we're going to, as I said earlier, do this as often as humanly possible. And
you said that about Spider-Man page by page.
Well, yeah, it's been difficult to get together with Dan.
I know. I just recently rewatched those, so it was fresh in my mind.
Yeah, all 3 of them.
And what's funny is you've clearly read the next issue and intended to make a video because you referenced the next issue.
Yeah, and then that didn't end up happening. Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for listening, folks. Sure appreciate it. And let us know what you think about these episodes, if you saw them, and these shows in general, and the premise of this series we're doing. And in the meantime, I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Eric.
And we'll see you next time.